Welcome to my session about modular form design. Who doesn't know me? My name is Achim Peschke, and I'm working for 4D Germany. What is modular form design? The answer is easy. Take some predefined components and put it together. Not components in case of the components you write for 4D, for the other components, but components as, components, just like Lego bricks or IKEA furniture. In 4D's form design, this means putting together different 4D interface elements or even complete forms to create your interface. And modular means also that the single parts should be interchangeable in a very easy way. You might say, this is not new. Yes, you're right. This is not really new. We introduced lots of this with V11 or V12. But when we look to applications or talk with customers, we often see or hear that these techniques are rarely used or even not known, although this stuff is not new. In general, the overall goal is to create modern interfaces. Okay, what is modern? If your interface is modern, it depends on what you design. Okay, it's not mainly depending on 4D. So it's the design point of view, what you do. I will show you how to create modular interfaces. Use modules or components, as I told you some moments ago, that you can interchange the single parts in a very easy way. Interchangeable modules bring you a high grade of flexibility. Do not use lots of forms or form pages. Simply switch between components. How many form pages do you have in your big applications for your main form in the applications? 10? 20? 3? Only 3? Okay, I'm wondering. The biggest German application I know has in the main management form 48 pages and has lots of problems with performance. Using this modularity, let me say it, modularity, he could reduce the number of pages to 2022, and now the form is okay. But it might be better in the future if he works on this. And finally, this leads to efficiency. Efficiency in terms of usability and memory needs. Memory needs and then performance. To do this, we need 3 things we will talk about in this session. The first thing are subforms. So before someone will ask me, hasn't 4D declared old subforms as deprecated? No, we never declared subforms as deprecated. And yes, we declared subforms as no longer modern and not flexible to use. But this was recommended in case of, let me say, list view subforms. What we will use are the detail form subforms. Is someone using already detail form subforms? Oh, so much. 3, 2.5. Okay. In case of list view subforms, you can use list boxes. The better and modern solution, the feature-rich solution, as you have already seen here. Or maybe you can see tomorrow. And what we want to use are the detail view subforms. The next thing are dynamic form variables. Who already uses dynamic form variables? Okay, less than 10. These variables can be created on the fly, or let me say more or less on the fly. So you do not need anymore lots of variables in your forms that you maybe have, that all are hidden when loading the form, and you maybe show to your customers if your customer wants to see more or needs more variables. You simply create them when needed at runtime on the fly. A very efficient approach. And the next, or the last thing, interesting things, is the 4D command dialog that we use here. Why dialog? Listen to my words. It is the command that has the future in 4D. For the future, do not use anymore modify selection, display selection, modify record, or display record. I will not say that these commands will not work anymore. Maybe we will fix errors if we find errors. Maybe, don't know. I can't promise. But you have one single command to manage all your windows, only the command dialog. That's it. And we will have a look at some examples. So, the first one is a nice sample written by Ed Comanchero and Ziri for the 4D World Tour last year, so 2017, who has visited, these of you who visited the roadshow will have seen or know this example. It's an example of a so-called one form application, which comes near to the idea the lot of you will have 1, 2, 3 pages or so on, and not 40 or 50 pages. Germans, you know.
Check your connection into there. We've got a lot of flicker going on the screen here.
Yes, it's a problem. He exchanged already all here, but it doesn't help. He knows not where the reason is. Maybe it's a bit better, but it doesn't. Well, maybe he's working on. I cannot help you, sorry. I haven't brought this technique from Germany. It was good. What wanted I to say? One form applications. Modern, modular, efficient. I have repeated this now. So, okay. We have a contact manager. A contact manager. On the left, we have something. In the middle, we have something. On the right, we have something. What do we have in the middle? On the left side. What is this? Hierarchical list. Wrong. In the middle? Wrong. On the right side? we speak about subforms, exactly. Yeah, you got me. All three are subforms. Of course, in the leftmost subform we display no hierarchical list. It's a list box. And in the middle, in the subform in the middle, we display a list box. And on the right, we display a detail form, as you know, input form of the table, or project form, or what else. So, and we can choose here different contacts. If you have, if you have a different selection, you can insert. What do I want to insert? HI, for example. I have a bit. So it looks better. It looks much better now. And on the right, you see a detail form. You can double-click a contact if you want. But in this case, it's no more a one-form application, but now it's maybe a bit bigger, and you can see this is a modern look. A look as a web app or a mobile app has, with no more fixed frames, two-dimensional frames on the fields. Fields which are on the bottom of the fields, there's a light gray line showing where the field is supposed to be. And with, how is it named, placeholders over there. Placeholders instead of tips. You like tips? Yes, I not. Tips are awful, I think. The user moves the mouse on a field, and he does not know what to do with the tip. And if you have in the tip more than, I will not say one word, more than one line or 5 words with breaks, you can have it. You can tell a story in a tip. Yeah? And he starts reading. And if he starts reading, the tip closes. Okay, today we have a solution, but placeholders are a fine thing. Yeah? And very easy thing. Simply insert it. Yes, okay, but nice, but let's close it. So, and the last thing, we can switch with the tab to the next page, and then we see not a list anymore. We see a very modern approach, display, labels, a grid of labels, cells, all customers in a cell. And if we do such things, we have more records. And if the user enlarges or reduces his form, if there is a place for more or less records, very nice, isn't it? So, but I haven't invented this. It's ads application, and I only wanted to show with this application what might be possible. Let me see where we are. So, okay, next sample. We close this one. Yes, I want to close. And open this one. So, this sample shall show you the different techniques used for this big sample. In a small sample, very easy to see it, to see such things with lots of pointers in complex examples might not be so easy. I love simple examples, non-generic examples. Okay, German. Let me show you the structure shortly. I have a very simple structure. It is companies and company details. Could be companies and invoices, company and co-workers, or what else. Company and company details means I have a one-to-one relation in my case here. And if we have a look in user mode over there, we have so much records, only to get my form started by double-click. And on the first page, we see a parent form with some objects over there on the top with a button. And below, we have a subform with a detail form. And what is new, what was never possible before with the list view subforms, if we tap through this, it is very smooth for the user, and he does not see what he does. He simply clicks. This was never possible before. If you tapped through, you could tap through all the objects in the surrounding form. If you wanted to tap in, you first had to click inside. Then you could tap inside. If you wanted to tap out, you had explicitly to click out to do this. Great. And what can we do else? We can switch the detail form very easily. Why should we do this? Imagine you have different access rights depending on the user. You want to display forms with more or less details. You want to display forms from completely different tables, for example. You want to switch between company details and invoices or what else. And if the user enlarges or reduces this, all that is inside the subform container is automatically resized by footy. No more big programming, big methods to resize all this. Let me see. So let's have a look in the, wait, over there, companies. This is the form. And to prove, this is the subform. Wrong. Also wrong. Yeah. This subform. And okay, normally what you have when you create a subform is normally it looks this way. This is how you know it if you work with list view subforms and not with detail view subforms. You have all the stuff for managing the list view display by several options you can activate or not. And what is new over there? The area for the variable name. Is it big enough? Can you see it? Or is it okay. You give a variable name, There is no more variable name. Since v15, we come to this later. You can choose a variable type. In this case, I do not use a variable type. We come to this later. And I want to switch this off. Now we have the detail view subform, the subform container for the detail view, and I could display, I can say I want a table as a source or no table as a source. If I have a table, I could choose between different tables, and I could choose input forms of my tables, or list form of my tables if you want. And if you choose none, you don't use any list form, you use one of all of these. You can choose, for example, the report area. You can choose one of several widgets of 4D, the date picker, the time picker, the search picker, and so on. You can use one of a 4D component forms. For example, the native forms for the native component for the progress bars and so on. Or you can use your own subforms coming from one of your 4D components, or no, sorry, not subforms, detail forms, or coming from any project form, not table form. Okay, that's it. Let's close this. And okay. Then I will only show, because we are late in time now, because my boss had used my time. All what I show you or what I don't show you is on your USB key with a detailed description how to use it, that you can understand how to use or why to use it, and with a description how to use it as a Word document, or maybe it's a PDF, I don't know, I haven't checked it. I delivered Word, I don't know what was the final result. And so all we do not investigate here, you can do by yourself. And let's have a look at the communication. Communicating. I told you that a subform is no longer a static subform, but it's a so-called subform, active subform container. And you give him a variable name, or you can give him a variable name. And this means you can use this variable name to communicate with him, or with it, maybe with her, but so with it, yeah. And this sample shall show you how. Hello. Add space, and automatically I press tab. 4D automatically sends the value. You know this since years. If variable names are the same in your form, the values are, if you validate the entry, the values are communicated, spread automatically between all the variables with the same name. And here we want to, hello at, yeah. W, Washington. And if we do this, tab, validate the input, the value is sent outside. How is this done? This is done, variable is named myvar, but this variable not. How can I communicate with this? The subform container is named myvar. And the variable myvar in the surrounding form and the subform container are name binded. And then 4D cares about automatic value exchange. Let's have a look into the form. And here you see one of the new form events. If the bound variable changes, yeah, do it now, okay?
Sorry.
Screen. One, two. It's better now. I haven't checked that you could not hear me. So if the bound variables change, 4D sees it, it changes the value automatically and sends to the subform an event on bound variable change. And then I can do what I have to do. I get a pointer to the object, to the subform object, and then write the value to the subvar variable inside the detail form that is assigned the active subform container. And the other thing I can imagine, you know what happens if I insert into the variable inside the subform container and go out. Okay, on data change, I again get the pointer to the subform container because it's a local variable, the method is ended, so I have to get it by new, send the value to the container, and as far the value is in the container, 4D cares about the exchange to the outside world in the form. Okay? So nice and easy. But imagine you have more than one subforms you want to communicate each other or between different subforms, yeah? And in this case, we want to have a look at this page. We can, with this button, increment the left subform, with this, the right subform, and with this both, or we can communicate from inside to the outside. And my simple sample was incrementing. There are different things possible. So how is this done? Let's start. Let's close this. You have the chance to do an execute method in subform now. I have a method. My method is named increment something. Increment the click with every click count. And I want that this method is executed in the subform container number 3, in the left one. And okay, that's it. And the method knows all the objects in the detail form. So it can increment automatically all the stuff. And what the method does is simply this getting pointer, incrementing the value, sending the value using the pointer. And I think you trust me, if I click this button, the same method runs in the right subform. And also, this button, that is no magic. If I call the methods, the same method 2 times, once for the left and then for the right. So active subform container. So how to send, have I shown? I think I forgot to show this. Now I have shown to communicate between the subforms. And that's interesting. Let me open the detail form. And the button, it's a bit like call process. But now call subform. But not now. Started with V12, V13, I forgot, long ago. Call subform container, if the button has been clicked, I generate my own event. You could hand over an event like on load, on clicked, on what else. I don't like this because in this case I might not know that it is my event. I want to know it is my event, so I have to control what is my event. And I take any number from, don't know, 0 to 32,000, or the number doesn't depend. You have enough numbers. You cannot click so often that the numbers will not be enough. And a minus in front of, and that's okay. And then, call subform container always calls the own subform container. This subform container in which this form is displayed. And here we are again in the object method. And if my form event has happened, again, execute method in subform in the right one. And the other way around. So, and the last thing, why doesn't it close? Here we have nearly the same edit form, click on the button, call subform container 99, the method calls its own, the button, the method, the object method calls its own container. And in this case, if my form event has happened, now I don't want to call any other subform. So I must not call execute method in subform. I simply want to increment a variable, and this is the variable in the outside world of my form. Okay, now let me show you a real-life example. I thought about what to do, and I thought, what about a small toolbar inside a form? And if the user enlarges or reduces, I can display more or less of my nice buttons. Yeah, great, nice buttons. You must know, you have to know, Achim and interfaces are two different worlds. Yeah. But it shall not be nice. You will make it nice. It's not my part. It's my part only to show you how it works. So, and we want to look at the last page into the form method. Wait a moment. I was too fast. This is my form. Here are all my objects. And what I do if this project form with this 4 buttons is loaded, I have an initial state. I know that I always only can display the first, the red button. Therefore, I hide all the others. That's the initial state. And if we now go into the form method when the user, okay, Laurent did the same before. We opened the object method. If I now if the user enlarges or reduces the form size, I have the onResize event live, and it is stacked and execute method in subform as before with my method resize. And what will my method resize do? So we start. I ask, where are my buttons? Then I ask for the current size of the subform container because the user resizes. Does not depend if enlarging or reducing. And then I love this word, a suitable algorithm. I think you all have suitable algorithms, me too, to decide, okay, I can show the next button, or all 4 buttons, or I have to hide the buttons again because the form is reduced. So very easy stuff here. How much time is left? Enough?
15 minutes.
Okay. Let's talk about dynamic form variables. I will present you this in some slides. As I told before, the sample and the description is on the USB key. Up to now, typing a variable was easy. You had always to type a variable name by using the name of the variable in the form and one of these compiler commands. But starting with V15, as I told you before, new created variables do not have any name anymore. So things have changed. What if you want to use for these compiler commands, you have to give it a name. That's nice, but not generic. Okay, sometimes I hate generic, but other guys say, hey, generic is good. Yeah. So, but if you don't use these variable names anymore, you cannot type the variable anymore. That's the problem. And okay, that's correct. If you now copy such a variable in your form, then for D itself keeps the object name unique. This is not the case for the variable name. You have to keep the variable name unique if you would use it. So simply do not use it anymore. And for a new variable, there is no more variable name. Okay. And how, so there's a command, duplicate, object duplicate, object is the first word, object duplicate, it changed in between. Then you copy your variables at runtime if you need it. And how is this now typed? For D gives such names at runtime. You do not see, you can see it, but you do not need it. Don't care about this name. 4D cares about this, because 4D has to types this variable for you by using this name, this local form variable name. It's kind of local form variable. And excuse me. Never try to remember this name, because if you close this form, it is deleted, and if you open it again, you will not have the same name. You will have any name. No, not any, but a different. Therefore, don't remember, don't save the names and try to use it later. You will have big problems in your life. So, but use this pop-up menu. And now you can say, but 4D has said never use this. You cannot type a variable with this setting. Yes, if you use variable names. But if not, then you type your variable with this setting by choosing whatever you need. And then you can get the pointer to the variable, as we have seen before, with this pointer to the subform container when if bound variable changed has happened, and then you assign values or you get values. So, and you can also choose none. Why should you choose none if you don't know which type you need? It's a question of strategy. You can later. And in this case, 4D cannot type, because 4D does not know. And you cannot type because you have no name to type. So what to do? Use a special, let me say, initialization code. By using variable to variable, and using variable to variable, you put a value from a predefined different variable inside, and that's it. And if you then try to assign by pointer a text, you get an error message in a compiled database as you know it from other compiled databases. Okay. Okay. Okay, and again a sample. Don't save. Yes, I know. And yes, this one. This version. If you come tomorrow to the 40 Write session from me, I will show you V17. This is V16, because there's nothing inside. We would need V17 for this. So now I want to explain you how I built up the grid with the grid. We have a very simple extract of the previous structure I have shown you at the beginning, and I will show you the records I have imported. Very simple, with a picture and two names. First name, last name. So that's all. And yes, all is the keyword. We start the method all, and that's it. We have a look in a moment. And also here I can do a type ahead search. And also if I enlarge or resize, I will show more or less of my labels, of my grid cells, or however you would name these things. So let's have a look in design. Explorer, forms. This is my form. Here is a subform. To prove this, a subform container. With no name, I have no need to communicate, so the name and the type is not needed. And inside the subform, we call this project form. And this project form has three objects. These are these objects is a set of template objects. Three for the name, for the photo, and a rectangle. So no variable, also, yes, a simple object. And these are used for what we see now. if, let's go back over there, we first open the form in onload to initialize the grid. And if we initialize the grid, I know I have when opening, I have always a certain size, and I have to fill with so much labels that fit in the subform container. And therefore, I first load all records, in this case. Then I get the size of the subform container. And then I have, again, a suitable algorithm to calculate how much columns will fit in the given size of the subform container. Is it still flickering? No. Yes? Okay. Suitable algorithm. You can change it. You can do your own. And then I set the timer to 1 for the form can breathe again before it has to show all of this stuff. And then when the timer runs, again, execute method in subform, as you know it from before, for my colored buttons, and we call this method. So, and what I do with this method, it might be that there are still some duplicated objects from times before. And what are developers? Yes, you're right, developers are lazy. No, there was no question, there was 10 questions. Developers are lazy. Why delete something what I do not have to delete? I need time for programming, 4D needs time to delete this. I simply put it to invisible and move all to 0, 0, then I can find it very easily in my programming because I know where it is. Also it is invisible. Then I load my records, in this case the number of records in the selection, put thanks add first record, normally no more needed since 20 years. And then in a for loop, for all records found, I create names for when I duplicate once the set of template variables, that I can give it names to work with these duplicated variables. So the variables are named name1, photo1, rectangle1, and for the second record, name2, photo2, rectangle2, and so on and so on. And then I duplicate these objects. And then I set them to visible, ask for the current container size, line 26 for the current container size. Then again, a suitable algorithm. I think you now have learned the word, and we'll never forget it. And then I move my objects to the place in the grid, line, column, where they have to be. Then I get pointers to these now placed objects and make the data bind to the photo and the name of the current record. And that's for all records, finally a redraw, and that's it. Normally very easy, maybe a bit to think, because it might be different than you're thinking before, but the technique is not new. The newest techniques, Laurent Guinaud will show you tomorrow in his session dynamic forms, something with dynamic forms, so I forgot. It's his session, not mine. But a complete different approach. So how much time is left? 5.5 minutes, okay. So, and a last thing is we will go once back to the first example. And here I wanted to show you how to switch the different form pages. Yeah. And we go to design mode, have this form already opened, and have a look here. And that's now tab. That's now tab, and the form has only one page. It's a simple one-page application. I have, what is this, highlight button? I think, yes. Invisible button would not work because the button shall look highlighted, and this only works with the highlight button, like a tab does when I click on it. And behind the highlight button, there is a small, nice gray icon. I display a list or detail form or the grid. Yeah? And the programming might be interesting as the last thing, the last two object methods. What I do, I hide the rightmost subform. I don't need it anymore. Then I get, I write, no, the first 3 lines is managing of the buttons, how they are displayed or not. Then here I set the rightmost subform to invisible. I don't need it any longer. And this method here, initialize contact grid, over there, gets the coordinates of the middle, of the subform in the middle, to have the left frame. The next object get coordinates get the coordinates of the hidden subform to have the right frame. And with this, I set my subform in the middle to the maximum size to display a big grid. And then I switch object set subform from the list box that was displayed to a detail form with a grid. And that's it. And we want shortly to wrap up this. This one, okay, sorry. Important points of the session. Subforms are the tool of your choice if used in detail view mode. This way you can create modular forms, modular and efficient forms for modern user interfaces. For more flexibility and safe memory, use dynamic form variables. We have seen this. This means without any variable names. And do not create your variables on stock in the form. Maybe you will never need the number of variables that you have defined. And one thing I forgot. I said I don't delete the variables I have duplicated. If I always create the variables again from scratch, you can tell, oh, he always duplicates new variables. No, I don't do this. If I duplicate a variable that gets a name that the already duplicated variable has, object duplicate does simply nothing. And if the form is closed, for D deletes all for me. So I save time, programming, performance, and I save all what you want to save. And last but not least, use dialog and no more the others. We write somewhere. All quite easy. Any questions? Oh, so much. He was first.
Two questions, one on redraw and the other on the bound variable change event. I notice you call redraw for the list box at a couple points in your code, and then you call redraw for the window. It's not clear to me from your code why you decided need to call redraw at those points.
So very easy. Normally, and I hope this answers your question, there are different commands to redraw something in 4D. You have the redraw command, the redraw window command, and could be there's a redraw subform command. If I know I need a redraw, I try it. Which command is the correct one? Sorry, I don't never know. One will work.
So interestingly, redraw is one of the only 4D commands that won't take an object name. It requires a variable name instead. Anyways, the second question was on bound variable change event. If you have a subform on other than page 1 in your form, it seems the events seem to be a bit erratic. You know, it doesn't get loaded, it doesn't get called on load, And then if you switch to it and the variable's already set, it doesn't get an onbound variable change event, it just gets an onload event. Any insight on how to use that?
Yeah, it has nothing to do with the onload event. As I told you, since years, 4D had an automatism that names with the same name, variables with the same name, the value, if I insert a value in one of these variables, it is automatically spread to all the other variables. And now, and you could never control this. You only had the effect to see that suddenly all the variables with the same name has a new value. And now we inserted this event that you can control this in the future, what was never possible when it happened. Okay?
Yeah, I don't think you're understanding the question. So
Maybe.
If I have a form, 2 pages, on page 2 is a dynamic subform.
Yeah.
So if I set the dynamic variable associated with the page 2 subform, while I'm still displaying page 1,
Okay.
nothing happens.
Okay. I cannot give you the answer now. All my tests were only on a one-page, or page 0 and page 1 subform. I never checked this with a variable on page 2. It might be, I don't know. I don't know the answer. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm curious, you didn't say a whole lot about getting rid of modify selection. Maybe that was a slide that we didn't have time to get to, but could you say a little bit more about your recommendation? I mean, sure, use a list box, but modify selection does have some, nice features. I mean, you double select and you double click to select, and if you click once, you've got the user set and some other things.
And to be clear, you are right. I told you some minutes ago that it is not deprecated. It still works, and it keeps on working 5 years, 10 years, don't know. In 10 years, I'm retired. It does not interest me anymore. Yeah? Not 10 years, less than 10 years. But you can use these commands. These commands are not deprecated. They will keep on working.
What's the smart alternative?
And if there will be bugs, I think we will fix these bugs. But the modern command is the command dialog, which fits to all that you hear concerning objects. Laurent has always clicked on the green arrow in the form. And for me, never use these green arrow. But this is a different story for another session. Also, Laurent uses dialog to fill his forms. This is the command fitting the modern needs for objects and the generic form, dynamic form. It only works with these forms. Because with modify selection, it is not possible to create a form from scratch. And this is what we not have done. We had an existing form with an existing templates and duplicated templates, but the form was existing. And to have a non-existing form and to create such a form from scratch, you need the command dialog. This is a new feature that is built in dialog and will never built in the other commands like modify, selection, and so on. That's the simple answer. Okay? Other questions? Chip.
One of the things you did was you dropped a reference to a method for coloring the text, for coloring the fonts.
Yeah.
I'm not using the latest, greatest version, but it seems to me that becomes difficult to debug and to chase down where that's referenced, for an example.
Yeah.
Because at the moment, at least in the versions I'm working in, you can't do a search in database and find where that particular piece of code is referenced.
This is the problem of all execute commands.
I do that, by the way. But
yeah, and this is the problem of all working with objects and objects content and object attributes. You no more have this control. It is, you don't have it. But it's the same in JavaScript, the same in any other language. The only thing, if you want to avoid problems with this, don't use execute commands. But then, that's bad. It's not future rich. Okay? Fine. No more questions? Great. Have fun at lunch, at the summit, and thank you.